Hey everybody, good morning, sabah al khair. We are going to get started with Muhammad el-Kurd, who's all the way in Palestine on the grounds, who's going to give us updates of what's happening with his family's case, what's happening in Sheikh Jarrah, and everything else going on in Palestine. So thank you so much for joining. Once he comes on, we'll get started. Hey y'all, good morning. And of course, if you have any questions, all right, Muhammad is in the building. Let's see. Hey Muhammad,
Ahlan, hello.
كيفك? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. It's been a minute.
I know. It's been so
Subhanallah.
busy.
I know. يعطيك العافية والله يحميك.
Shukran, Allah يخليك. Sorry, this lighting is a bit harsh. Okay. Okay.
Is it like the sun's going down right now in Palestine?
No, actually, it's still quite sunny, and it's windy, so this curtain keeps blowing up in my face.
Nah.
Hi to everybody watching. Hello.
Everybody's really excited. Hamad, oh, just what a world, right? Like we were only a few months ago, we were having small clubhouse rooms and talking about your ideas of mass protest here in the States on Nakba. And you are doing that with the Palestinian on the ground beyond that in a way that we could have never imagined. So just talk to us. How are you doing? First of all, I miss you, and I'm so proud of you. And talk to us about what's going
Thank
on.
you.
And
Thank you so much. Oh my God, thank you. Yeah, I'm good. I miss you as well. I do remember. I think the clubhouse rooms were quite big actually, and yeah, I didn't think I wanted to. I wanted to, work with some folks on protests all over the world, and boom, that came to life.
yeah.
I didn't think anybody expected it, yani.
Yeah, no, but I think it was just honestly, I remember your push and your determination, and even here with the US borders with local Palestinian activist organization and even elected officials, and like you were just like ringing the alarm. And I feel like now Sheikh Jarrah is really has become something not just are people familiar with, but people are understanding what the Nakba is, what 73 years of Israeli occupation is, and your family's case that has been ongoing for quite some time. But talk to us about the case. Like, it's just interesting because it's like you have to go, like you say, to a racist system that already displaced the Palestinians to be making those kinds of decisions who are also settlers themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I just want to say thank you, and this has been like the fact that Sheikh Jarrah has become this household name is in fact due to the tireless work of many activists like yourself and advocacy workers all around the world, in the States as well. And I'm very appreciative of it. In terms of the case, I cannot. It cannot be quantified, or nor do I have the desire to understand the legal nuances of the case, because at the end of the day we understand that this system, not only was it built on stolen Palestinian land, but it is willing to do anything, any kind of fabrication to displace you. It is willing to justify whatever, and oftentimes people will cite here and there one or two racist laws, but people need to go beyond that and understand that the entire system is biased against Palestinians, to say the least. In our case now, we are kind of being forced by the Israeli government, by the Israeli judicial system, to reach a settlement with the Israeli settlers. And we are just seeing what's happening. The Supreme Court is refusing to make is refusing to make a ruling on this case, and so we're kind of being cornered to make our own ruling, to kind of be responsible for our dispossession. Because if we do reach a deal, quote unquote,
Right.
We're going to be responsible for our own dispossession. It's not going to be the Supreme Court's ruling. It's not going to be the settlers' ruling. It's not going to be anybody's push. Everybody's going to be satisfied except the members of Sheikh Jarrah, who are going to be kind of blamed for this.
Yeah, and I think that Muhammad, people like you have, it's been monumental because even the language that we use is important. Using forced expulsions versus evictions, you just explained why that's important, right? First of all, we like, they're not supposed to be our landlords. They are not our landlords. This is our land. But also just how so much of the Zionist movement has been co-opted by language, has been co-opted by trickling down into social justice spaces. And I think something that you were able to do alongside post George Floyd is, like, just a few years ago, people were scared to take a knee. People were scared to write Black Lives Matter or say Black Lives Matter. And people were, were getting fired and for saying, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. But something that you've shown us is how to be unapologetic, how to be unbought, and just if you can just talk to, like, language, you can talk to just, like, what is that you do to ensure that you continue to, like, obviously not forfeit your values in your fight for justice for the Palestinians and really people globally.
Yeah, well, first of all, shout out on bot. Second of all, it's interesting. The Zionist strategy has been a constant red herring, a constant distraction. You cannot say a word, you cannot make a statement without being cornered, without being put on the defense, without having to explain yourself and justify yourself. And in my case, I refuse to do all of this. And I think there's a growing community of Palestinians who are refusing to do this. They're refusing to be put on the defense. They're refusing to make excuses. Obviously, this comes with a lot of backlash. This comes with a lot of bullying. It comes with a lot of intimidation. And people are worried about their livelihoods, and they're worried about their socioeconomic status, their relationships, and so on and so forth. But we're also building a community of Palestinians who will have each other's backs, who will not let such things, such muzzling of mouths, such silencing of opinions, be acceptable. I think that's the tipping point here. Is this, like you said, we're unapologetic, and we're not trying to be respectable. We're not trying to appeal to a certain audience.
And I think a lot of that, too, to your point, is that it does appeal to this two-side narrative that is very dangerous and problematic and undermines the Palestinian freedom struggle. But Muhammad, like, you are someone that we all love and adore, but, like, we want to know, like, how do you take care of yourself in this time? How do you, like, I know, like, you're like, oh, the people in my mentions, like, they just have me keep going. But, like, in reality, like, what are you doing? We want to make sure that you're did about, like, a halak. And I know something that I love. You remind me of, like, the old school Palestinian, like, kind of like, oh, well, all the Palestinians go through this. Like, that's something, like, so when we ask you how you're doing, you're like, I'm fine. I'm the lucky one, But really, what are you doing to take care of yourself?
What, like you said, everybody, especially living here on the ground, goes through this. I have the privilege of being away for some months of the year to study outside. But really, when you're back here and you see everybody's different reality, be it inside the wall or you hear from people inside the besieged Gaza Strip or inside Jerusalem or inside land that was occupied in 48, like Haifa. Everybody has a different reality, but everybody's going through it in a certain way. And I think that's what makes me, keep pushing. But also, I'm not going to lie, like, I complain more than anybody else I know. I'm constantly complaining about this, and I'm venting about it constantly. So, yeah, complaining and advocating.
You're fighting.
So yeah, I think, I mean, it's not an issue of, like, exceptionalism. It's not an issue of working too hard or like being tireless. It's just I recently realized that, oh my God, I have a platform and I've been shoved into the, into the spotlight, and I
Yeah.
just choose what to say and what to not say online. So you see maybe 50% of what I think and say, and the other 50% is me complaining and whining about how hard this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad, and you know that we're all like rooting for you, and we're all like Allah yahmik and your family and everybody
Allah
else.
يخليكي.
How's your Baba doing? Like, we all are always like looking out for footage of him and his wisdom, and he cracks us up a lot of times. And inshallah, he's doing well. And your sister, everybody's good.
Thank you so much. No, they're all doing good. Yani, and my father sends his regards. And it's really wonderful to think about Sheikh Jarrah in the sense of a tight-knit community, in the sense that there's like, dozens of people like my father who go through their life despite all of this and remain resilient. And it's where we draw our strength from. And I think about this in the sense that this has been 49 years of going to courts. Every single month you go to court, or you have a hearing, or your neighbor has a hearing, and you all do it as a community. And to realize that my father's generation, just the older generation of Palestinians, is exhausted by this,
Yeah.
makes me work hard to end it and work with my peers to end it, because I also do not want to be exhausted by it. I'm just in my early 20s, and I'm already kind of sick of this.
You are very young, and you're doing the damn thing. I know that there's a
But how are you?
lot of young people that globally, but specifically here in the US. And me, I live here in this violent state of Florida, where we don't have real progressives. We have loud liberals that oftentimes exceptionalize Palestine. But what I've seen is all of these young people, Muhammad, come out, right, with the Sheikh Jarrah and the forced expulsions in Jerusalem and Gaza, everything that happened in May. And what do you tell young people that, how not to get disenchanted, and then we end up in opposition of the right-wing publication or even establishment, and many times here in the state of Florida, social justice orgs that like you think of as your co-strugglers historically, but are not showing up for you, and many times are contributing to this kind of violence, to the anti-Palestinian rhetoric. What do you tell young people and activists, to Palestinian activists and our co-strugglers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an excellent question. I think what's been helpful for me, every day, and not just me, like anybody who speaks up for Palestinian liberation, for decolonization, who's critical, who's unafraid to not just talk about human rights violations, but the illegitimacy of the regime we live under, is going to receive a lot of surveillance and bullying and intimidation and a lot of counter work. And I see it every day on my Twitter, on my Instagram, and I see the articles written and blah, blah, blah. But it's really important to remind yourself that the tide is turning. I think that's what matters. Yes, there are people who are grown men getting paid to write stupid articles about us, but also there are hundreds of thousands of people who are taking to the street, and you do not see hundreds of thousands of people taking onto the streets to advocate for the other side. So it's just really important to remind yourself. And I think something my grandmother has always believed is the cyclicality of history, is that what comes around goes around, and is there's no empire on earth that has lasted forever, and every empire should come crumbling. Every form of oppression will eventually come crumbling, and this gives me hope. And at the end of the day, for us, for people like you and me, this is not really a choice. You're immediately threatened. If you're not immediately threatened, then your family is threatened, and your loved ones are threatened, and your friends are threatened. So you have to say something, especially if you have some kind of privilege or leverage or platform. I think so. Yeah, I think when I was in the States, a lot of my friends, or a lot of the young Palestinian Americans that I would meet, sometimes would be hesitant or afraid, rightfully, because of the repercussions and the ramifications. So I think the counter argument should be that even if there is ramifications, even if there's consequences, there's going to be a body of Palestinians and Palestinian institutions or allies that will protect you and
Yeah,
work to defend you.
absolutely.
But you never told me how you were.
Oh, I'm good, alhamdulillah. I'm just like, so I'm just really happy to see like you in good spirits, and honestly, I am proud of our Jalia, our diaspora, our movement, our co-strugglers, our young people, and I'm most certainly proud of you. It's tiring and it's exhausting, and then like when I go to bed, I'm like, oh my God, what is this life? And then I see you, and I'm like, okay, like this is our reality, and I think too when people don't understand that aren't Palestinian, it's like we don't have a choice. Like you said, we don't get to stop being Palestinian, nor would we want to stop being Palestinian, but it's not something that we can pause. And to that, we're thinking about it, and I see you talk about, all right, y'all, when's your next rally? You're asking folks, and then I see that you all have launched Make Noise for Jerusalem with the August actions. And how do we continue to like keep those momentum and continue actions to yes, our demonstrations are beyond powerful, right? Like the masses of people, but how do we get folks to really stay in action beyond the megaphone, beyond the peace sign in the air? Like all of this is important, right? The electoral process, holding our elected officials accountable. We've been doing petition deliveries, vigils, actions, using your platform. So how do you keep this momentum within right now? I'm just thinking yesterday, right? I mean, our signal chats for some of the Palestine, and I'm thinking, hey y'all, like, and the reaction's a little bit lethargic, I think, not so much because people stop caring, but there's, for some reason, people run on urgency, right? So how do we keep that going?
Of course, of course, I think like exactly what you said is that people run on urgency, and there needs to be bombs dropping or people actively crying in the street. It seems that there has to be bombs dropping for people
Right.
to care and go on and do something. But I think it's about building a culture of accountability, building a culture of sustaining this work, sustaining this movement beyond just protesting, beyond just angry tweeting. And I think the one major part of it is narrative shifting, and I think that battle we are winning today. We are successfully
Yeah.
changing the mainstream narrative on Palestine. I think, and I'm very proud of this generation's hard work, and I'm very proud of the many people and movements this generation has built on.
Yeah.
But another thing is that you have to remember that oppression, I hate to say this word, but oppression is is intersectional, is like, if it's not happening to Palestinians, it's happening to indigenous people, especially in the States. If it's not happening to indigenous people, it's happening to Black people. And it's really important to constantly work against fascism, against dehumanization, against subjugation, no matter of the regardless of who the victims are, because eventually it's just math. The
Right.
less oppressive people there are in the world, the less oppression there be. And if indigenous people are more empowered in the United States, it's more likely that Palestinians are going to be more empowered in the United States, in general. I also think, just to add something really fast, is that we have to kind of build around this unapologetic sentiment we have built in the past few months. We have raised, and when I say we, I mean everybody who's participated in this movement in the past few months, we have raised the ceiling tremendously. And now is not the time to allow Palestinian elites or institutions or people who are afraid to lower our ceiling. We have justified our resistance, we have justified our existence, we have justified our anger, and we have justified it in a way that is unapologetic, in a way that does not explain it away or does not apologize for it. So I think it's really important to stay there, to be unabashed in your support for our liberation, because people around the world are more likely to support you if you are in a position of power. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I
And
read everybody's comments while I'm speaking. It's very distracting, but thank you all.
I was like, how does he do this? This is so much. This is overwhelming. But you can, what I guess it's pleasantly surprising to see how much support there is, right? Versus sometimes the Zionists tend to infiltrate so much of our, as they're monitoring and all that. I know you have to go soon, and I think what do you have to say to specifically Floridians that tend to who are in leadership position, who do movement work, who many times when they want to talk about Palestine, they'll bring up other issues like, oh well, they lace it with combating anti-Semitism, they lace it with just the importance of combating hate on both sides. And I really wish I could just like have every Floridian that does this work, I guess globally really, but like listen to you and listen to the Palestinians, and just like, what do you have to say to folks that continue to really try to undermine, or who really understand but continue to be on the wrong side of history and wrong side of justice?
I mean, let's take a specific case. Just a few weeks ago, Ben & Jerry's decided to stop operating in the territories occupied in 1967.
Which is just
And
scratching the
that, to
surface,
me,
right? It's not.
yeah, it's literally just scratching the surface. And yet the response to this action has highlighted how important such action is. And I think Florida is doing the most, trying to kind of vilify Ben & Jerry's and get them to reverse their, decision. And, like they do the red herrings and tell us to focus on other things. I think it's important to focus on other things in the state of Florida instead of lobbying so hard and working so hard for Israel, instead of dying on the hills for Israel. Let's fix homelessness in Florida. Let's fix all of the problems that are happening in Florida, and give people better education and healthcare. Let's give people better access to resources, better access to services, instead of wasting our energy as policymakers, as politicians, working to vilify Palestinian people, working to actively subjugate Palestinian people. But at the end of the day, these people, for you and I, these people are not our audience. And if they're not working to subjugate us, they're going to be working to subjugating somebody else. And we don't need to change their minds. We don't need to be, sympathetic towards them or have them be sympathetic towards us. We should just replace them. We should just overcome them, and we will. And I think I say this, and it sounds like a big, loud slogan, but I do think the dam is cracking, if not already cracked, and Florida will catch on.
I like how you use the dam will crack as we're like peninsula, and we're climate change. And I think, yeah. But absolutely. And speaking of climate justice, I think encouraging folks to lean in that like all these issues, like you're saying, climate justice, indigenous fight, the Black struggle, are not only do we want to see the freedom for Black and brown marginalized people, but it's heavily interconnected. Last question for you, Mohammed, I know you gotta go, but like actions you recommend people to get involved in that of that are happening, whether it's here in the States or we're in Palestine or globally?
Yeah, I mean, people in Florida and elsewhere in the States follow Russia and watch Unbought. It's a series. I'm very happy. There's an Israeli flag. Yuck. I'm very happy to be in participating with you in this conversation, and I've watched many other inspiring conversations on Unbought. So I really appreciate you even inviting me on here, and I appreciate sharing time with you. I think we need to continue protesting in every way we can, be it on social media or in the streets or in the ears of our representatives and policymakers. And we need to be thinking, all of us together, about different ways to organize locally. If you are in the States, it's really important to think about organizing locally within your own city to help the Palestinian people and any other subjugated people. And in conclusion, I just want to say thank you again to Rasha and Jad. I really appreciate you having me, and I wish I had more time, but we'll definitely do this again. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Muhammad. I love you. Inshallah, next year on our birthday, May 15th, it will be we're not commemorating another Nakba, and we'll be singing Happy Birthday in Palestine.
Inshallah.
Sheikh Jarrah. All right. Thank you so much, Muhammad. I love you. Allah yahmeek. And you know where to find us. We're here.
Thank you. Bye.